4 in the morning, July 11th, 1881. 13 sailors on a British naval cruise watch a red-lit brig cross their bow, then vanish from a clear horizon before a midshipman can reach the rail. The published journal calls it the Flying Dutchman. That sounds like proof until the record is tested backward. No verified wreck, captain, or registry matches the complete legend audiences know today. Its earliest printed form held no pirate, no blasphemous oath, no 7-year search for love. Those details arrived later through travel books, poems, stage plays, novels, and opera. What stayed constant across a century of retelling was more unsettling. Exhausted observers, a killing coastline, uncertain light, and a story built to explain all three at once. To find the ship, we must first find the sea that invented it. The legend's real home was never a supernatural ocean. It was the shipping corridor around southern Africa. From 1652, the Dutch East India Company used the Cape as a refreshment station between Europe and Asia, and ships arrived after months at sea with worn crews, damaged rigging, and no engine to save them from a hostile wind. Table Bay offered safety, but reaching it under sail was never guaranteed. The material record is brutal. South African waters hold more than 100 Dutch wrecks, most tied to the company. That does not identify a Flying Dutchman, but it explains why a ship unable to enter harbor felt entirely plausible to sailors who had lived it. The Cape turned delay into danger and disappearance into rumor, long before anyone named a cursed captain. Strip away every ghost story, and the oldest surviving reference is startlingly small. It appears in John MacDonald's 1790 travel book. During bad weather near the Cape, sailors told him they had seen the Flying Dutchman, a Dutch vessel in distress that wanted harbor, could not get a pilot, was lost, and now appeared again in bad weather. That is the entire passage. No captain is named, no date given, no treasure described, nothing about piracy or a bargain with the devil. Even the haunting is practical, a lost ship failing to reach port, the same fear living crews faced when weather erased every landmark. MacDonald proves the tale was circulating by 1790, not how old it already was. The first reliable footprint isn't a shipwreck, it's a report of what sailors were saying. 5 years later, a voyage to Botany Bay gave the Phantom its first elaborate origin, then quietly undercut it. The book claims a Dutch warship foundered off the Cape while its consort survived. In a later storm, sailors imagined that lost vessel charging toward them under full sail. When weather cleared, the object was only a dark cloud. One boatswain swore he saw gun ports and lanterns where others saw nothing, and the narrator suggests glowing marine life, seen through mist, had been magnified into shipboard lights. The real surprise is bibliographic. Though published under convict George Barrington's name, modern scholarship treats it as a product of the London book trade, not a dependable eyewitness memoir. By 1795, the legend already frightened sailors while supplying its own natural explanation, a restraint the next writers abandoned. The Dutchman did not start as a pirate ship. Writers made it one. In 1803, John Leyden described a luminous vessel sailing straight into the wind, its crew punished after an unnamed crime and an outbreak of plague. Leyden tied that guilt to the first ship to carry enslaved people out of Africa. A decade later, Walter Scott's Notes to Rokeby changed the offense again. His Phantom carried stolen wealth after murder and piracy, plague driving it from every harbor. This is the first clear pirate framing in the surviving literary trail, not evidence of any real crew. The shifting crime matters. Enslavement, murder, wealth, and disease came from the violent colonial world that produced the story. Once piracy entered print, audiences mistook literary punishment for identity, and fiction was about to name that identity. In May 1821, Blackwood's Edinburgh magazine published a story that built the legend's real machinery. Its captain, Vanderdecken, swears he will round the Cape even if he must fight the wind until Judgment Day. His phantom crew approaches passing ships carrying letters for Amsterdam, addresses decades out of date, a bank long failed, the people they loved already buried. Refusing the mail feels dangerous. Accepting it means bringing the dead aboard your own ship. This was not a recovered log. It was a magazine tale, later credited to East India Company writer John Howison, but its emotional mechanism was exact. Long voyages separated sailors from home so completely that news could arrive after a life had already changed or ended. Vanderdecken finally had a name, an oath, and witnesses who could place him. The most revealing 19th century sighting starts with trained professionals, not frightened tourists. In 1823, survey ship HMS Leven believed it saw its own companion vessel, Barracuda, near the Cape, heaving to, lowering a boat. Barracuda did not arrive for another week. Its own log placed it roughly 300 miles away at that hour, no boat lowered. On a later voyage, Leven's crew reported the phenomenon again, a ship under heavy sail, close enough to hail, dissolving while officers watched through their glasses. The account used the Flying Dutchman as its frame, but the real evidence points elsewhere. Trained seamen assigning rig and motion to a distant image with no matching vessel nearby. Identification simply failed because the legend had already taught sailors what an ambiguous horizon meant. This is where everything changes. By 1826, the Dutchman left forecastle talk and printed pages behind and stepped onto a London stage. Edward Fitzball's The Flying Dutchman, or The Phantom Ship, opened at the Adelphi Theater with music, machinery, scripted entrances, costumes, and managed apparitions on cue. The drama edition never pretended to document a real voyage. It openly credited Blackwood's tale as its source. But theater changed the legend's scale completely. A distant shape, once described secondhand by exhausted sailors, could now materialize before hundreds of paying spectators, night after night, identical every time. Drama historians argue nautical spectacle turned a modest image into a mass cultural object almost overnight. Reports no longer drove the myth alone. Audiences finally learned what the ghost should look like. The famous 7-year rule everyone knows is younger than the ghost itself. In Heinrich Heine's 1833 tale, a narrator watches a Dutchman play unfold in Amsterdam. The cursed captain may step ashore once every 7 years, seeking a woman whose fidelity alone can release him. Heine tells it with open satire, calling the Dutchman a wandering figure of the ocean, half joke and half nightmare. Earlier versions offered no scheduled landfall and no romantic escape at all. The addition solved the storytelling problem. An eternally distant ship could finally meet people on land, creating courtship, choice, and redemption. It also detached the legend from the Cape entirely. Heine's scene unfolds near Scotland, proving the Dutchman had become fully portable. A comic, self-aware invention was about to be mistaken for ancient folklore. Frederick Marryat knew ships from real Royal Navy service, but his 1839 novel, The Phantom Ship, was fiction from the first page. It follows Philip Vanderdecken, who learns the cursed captain is his own father and sails in Dutch East India Company service to release him with a sacred relic. That structure gave the Phantom something every earlier version lacked, a living descendant who could chase it voyage after voyage. Marryat anchored the plot inside real labor, routes, ranks, storms, and colonial ports, making invention feel materially credible. Contemporary reviewers weren't impressed. Some complained the repeated apparitions weakened suspense. Yet that repetition helped standardize the legend. Readers now had a Vanderdecken family, a rash oath, the Cape, and a ship threatening every vessel nearby, ready for opera to compress into one image. Richard Wagner did not preserve a sailor's legend unchanged. He rebuilt it. He selected Heine's redemption plot, intensified it, and relocated the action to Norway ahead of his opera's Dresden premiere on January 2, 1843. The captain could still land every 7 years. Release now depended on a woman faithful unto death. Wagner's own turbulent 1839 sea crossing from Riga toward London shaped the storm atmosphere, though he openly credited Heine as his source. The opera's music made the Dutchman recognizable before audiences ever saw him on stage. Storm, longing, and doom became pure sound. A Cape apparition born from Anglo-Dutch colonial travel now belonged to the North Sea and a concert hall, free to resurface anywhere, even on an Australian night in 1881. The 1881 sighting matters because the record preserves observation and uncertainty side by side. During the HMS Bacchante cruise, a lookout, the watch officer, a midshipman, and others saw a brig-like form glowing red roughly 200 yards away. 13 people reported it. Nearby vessels signaled about the same red light. No material ship remained on the horizon once it vanished. Hours later, the sailor who first reported it fell from the rigging and died. The published journal placed both events on the same page, letting readers feel coincidence as omen. But the 1886 volume was assembled from letters and notebooks with editorial additions, not a raw decalogue, and it offers no physical identification of any ship. The death was real, the red light was reported, their supernatural connection was interpretation, added afterward. Here is a mechanism that fits red light reports without inventing a curse. A superior mirage can make a ship occupy an impossible place. When colder, denser air sits near the sea beneath a warmer layer above it, light bends as it passes through, and the eye, assuming those rays traveled straight, sees a distant vessel hovering higher than its true position. A fata morgana can stack images, stretch masts, compress hulls, or lift an object below the true horizon into view. The World Meteorological Organization notes these forms can change within minutes, matching the Dutchman's behavior. A ship appears elevated or distorted, then disappears before anyone can close the distance. Mirage cannot prove every report, since cloud and misidentification remain alternatives, but it proves sincere witnesses can see a ship where none exists. Early texts couldn't agree on anything the Dutchman carried, yet late 19th century paintings made the phantom look settled. Albert Pinkham Ryder finished his Flying Dutchman by 1887. The Smithsonian classifies its subject under Wagner as well as Storm and Sea. Proof that opera, not a recovered ship portrait, guided the image painters reached for. In 1900, Howard Pyle painted a broken vessel and defiant captain for Collier's Weekly. The Delaware Art Museum's records show the illustration ran without text. Viewers no longer needed an explanation. The visual code was already familiar. Neither painting is evidence of a 17th century hull, flag, or crew. They show memory hardening into material fact. Once artists supplied a fixed storm, silhouette, and captain, later retellings could copy the appearance and call it tradition, centuries after the ghost first appeared. The strongest candidate is Barend Fock, a Dutch East India Company captain famous for a fast 1678 passage to Java. Later tradition turned that speed into suspicion. Perhaps only the devil could move a ship so fast. No record identifies Fock as Vanderdecken, or as the sailor who swore the Cape Oath. The link tries to give folklore a birth certificate, and its failure resolves the mystery. The Flying Dutchman was never a lost pirate ship awaiting discovery. It is a record of Cape danger, colonial violence, separation, theater, optical distortion, coincidence, and storytelling. The 1881 red light and 1821 letters feel connected because the legend taught audiences to connect them. The truth is human. Real seas kill. Vision persuades. Stories outlive witnesses. Click the next maritime legend and test it.